Hey there guys, today's video is going to be a little bit different because in today's video I have a discussion with one of my friends, widely respected parrot toy manufacturer and enrichment specialist, Shewokis Sullivan. In this video we discuss how we do things differently for our animals and how that is okay. So, if you have ever been in the hobby or if you're getting new to the hobby and you think you're doing everything completely wrong because other people are telling you certain things, you don't know how you're going to fit in, this video is for you because in this video, we discuss how it is okay to do things differently. So if that's something you're interested in seeing, you want to make sure you stick around because that's going to be coming up right after. Hey there guys, this is Jack over at Hi Redbird, where I am tirelessly working to find new ways to make the keeping of exotic animals and pets more exciting, more affordable, and ultimately more enjoyable. Now I've been able to do that so far with a variety of tutorials showing you guys how I put together different things, how I care for my animals. But today's video is going to be more information based. This is an discussion that I had with Shewokis Sullivan. Now, she is the co-owner of the Leather Elves, which is one of the most widely respected parrot toy manufacturers in the country. She is a noted enrichment specialist. She has worked for zoos across the country to help them develop their enrichment programs, going back to the point that enrichment was almost a novel concept. She's been in the industry for at least a little bit. So I could not find someone better to have this conversation with because we wanted to hint on the notion that it's okay to do things differently. You want to make sure you're looking out for a couple of things. You want to make sure that whatever you are doing in terms of your animal care is safe for your animals, that you are acting on a plan with that animal in mind, but there are many roads that are going to get you to the same destination. And I know especially now as we're all stuck in our homes, we're all highly stressed. We're spending a lot more time online looking for information where, the bullying that can happen online or the complete lack of subtlety, the complete lack of, almost humanity at times can make it a little bit disheartening. So we wanted to hit on this notion because there are a lot of people who are new to the idea of keeping birds, keeping any exotic animal really, because this information is going to apply to pretty much all of them. We encourage you to do your research, but at the end of the day, if you are not doing things the exact same way that somebody else is, that can be okay. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into this discussion. If you guys like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, constantly working to provide new content for you guys. If you guys are interested in some of the products that Robin puts out, I'm also going to put a link to her website down in the description of this video below. Again, she makes absolutely amazing foraging toys, destructible toys, a lot of natural products. She uses leather, natural wood. So I have not yet met a bird that doesn't love her toys. So if you're interested in her, interested in what she has to say, not only does she do toys, she will do consultations for enrichment. She will do consultations for behavior training. So that may be something you guys want to check out. So again, that link will be in the description box down below. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into this conversation. So I certainly hope that this is helpful, meaningful, and for some of you out there who have been concerned about how you're doing things, feeling berated and bullied, I certainly hope that this video will help to validate you guys. Thanks.
Hi there. I'm Robin Sullivan from the Leather Elves, and this is my friend Jack Pine. Jack is Hi Redbird. Hey, Jack, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing, Robin?
Good. It's tough to be like kind of casual, It's the with the camera in your face, but I think it's a world we're kind of all getting used to. But Jack, do you want to share a little bit? I mean, what you do and what High Redbird is?
Sure. So I have done professional animal care for, well, I try not to tell people how many years because that's going to give them an idea of how old I am, and I try to deny that as much as I can. But for a while, I've been a professional zookeeper. I am currently the animal manager of a private facility just west of Houston. And I've actually been working during quarantine, trying to come up with some sort of project that keeps me from going insane. So I've been wanting to work on an online resource that pet owners and especially bird owners can use for a variety of different things. So I created High Red Bird. It's a YouTube channel. I've also got an Instagram, so you can go check that out there. But it's basically just pictures, how-to tutorials, exploring a variety of ways to make toys, make stands, and just make the best use of your bird and your environment.
Cool, very nice. And Jack and I have known each other for a while. We met at Parrot Festival in Houston, and
Don't say which one.
it's no, no, it's recently, very recently. He says the man with the dark hair to the woman with the gray, but Jack and I have done a lot of discussing as colleagues about differences. And so we wanted to share with everybody that it's okay to be different. And some ways, some things that we've seen in the companion parrot world and in the zoo world, as far as people butting heads. It's you go on Facebook, and I saw a post the other day that said something about if you post "I like orange," it comes back up. So you're saying that you don't like mango and you really have a problem with bananas and blah 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 blah. And that's pretty much what happens. There's always that little spark of drama that happens. And so Jack and I talked about we wanted to talk to you guys about how it's okay to be different. So the first thing that Jack and I talked about when we were thinking about this idea was the evolution of all of this. So, Jack, as a zookeeper, how have things evolved? What have you seen happen that has changed?
Well, I mean, so the care of animals, just in general, changes on a regular basis, and it's supposed to. We learn more about animals, we learn more about the needs of their nutrition, we learn more about their intellectual and emotional development. If you go back just a couple of decades, enrichment was a weird concept. Like, it wasn't even something that people thought animals needed. It was like, oh, okay, you can do that if you want to. You're bored and you want to play with animals. And now we realize that it's something that is crucial to the overall emotional and intellectual health of an animal. And that's going to be across the board. One of the biggest things I get with people asking about enrichment is what types of animals benefit from enrichment. And the honest answer is I have yet to meet any animal that doesn't benefit from enrichment. There is a way to enrich everything, and its life will be better because of it. So, literally everything has changed. The standards for housing, the standards for diet, the standards for care in general have changed so much.
Mhm. And I think, when I would do consulting with zoos and with companion parrot owners, it was, well, how often should I do this? And do I have to do it every day? And it shouldn't be a have to, it should be a want to. And
Right.
the evolution of parrot keeping, I told Jack this story that when I was a little girl, I remember my grandma had Sleepy the parakeet, and at this point now, it was Sleepy the parakeet, but I can tell you that it was a budgie. And Sleepy lived in the dining room in a round cage with a cuddle bone and a mirror. And everybody was always in the dining room. Sleepy never got covered. Sleepy ate Hart's Mountain Seed that came from Woolworths. And everybody smoked in the dining room. That was okay. Nobody, and Sleepy lived forever too. But we've learned so much since then. about how to care for the animals that are in our care. And companion parrot owners, I can tell you, I have been doing this for a very long time. And again, we won't mention how long, but the level of knowledge that companion parrot owners have has increased tenfold since I started doing this. And like you said about the zoo field, I remember talking to my mentor in the zoo world. Her name was Lee Houts, and she was from a zoo out in Northern California. And she said to me, "You need to do commercial animal enrichment, commercially designed and manufactured animal enrichment." And people thought I was a weirdo. I was like, what do you mean? And I'd call it enrichment to parrot owners, and they're like, "You mean toys? That's all we got to do, toys." And no offense, because that's where we were all at. So I think it's important in our discussion to remember that things, like you say, things are always changing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you go with your idea of, having that bird in your dining room that everyone was smoking around the bird. And, now we know that you shouldn't be doing that. But, I mean, look at how it goes with just us. I mean, up until the 80s, you were allowed to smoke in hospital waiting rooms. Like, let's not
Yeah.
pretend that we're that far off from being completely off the mark.
Right. And, Lara Joseph says, when we know better, we do better. It's Maya Angelou's quote. And I think it's so true. And I think, people get all excited about they want to have a bird, a companion parrot in their home. And I really like the way that one looks, and I'm going to get that one. Well, what do you know about that one? And then so I was told that I needed to feed it this and give it this, and it'll be fine. And then the rehoming saga begins. So Jack and I also talked a little bit about the research. You got to do your research. When you're creating, from my perspective, when you're creating enrichment, you want it to be as close to based on natural behavior as you can. And what are you going to, so if you have no idea where your bird comes from, not the pet store, but where it's geographically located in the wild, and how they flock and how many and how they feed, how can you possibly come up with enrichment for them? And, Jack, what about, do you see the same thing at work or, with your birds?
Yeah, I would say we get a lot of questions, and there are so many things you can answer that basically start with look at how that bird behaves in the wild. So even if just starting with someone wanting a bird and not knowing exactly what kind of bird they want, you can look at how those birds behave in the wild to figure out how they're going to work in your home. You take something like a cockatoo that typically lives in large flocks, it's probably going to be more okay with a lot of people in your family trying to interact with it. Then you take something like an Amazon that doesn't interact as well. They're more, individual pairs. That might be a great bird for one person, but in a large, busy household, that bird's probably not going to be as happy. I've got a flock of budgies, and they are in an aviary that has access to the ground. And we do get a lot of people who come out here and they will be terrified that my budgies have access to dirt and they spend time on dirt. And then if you look at how they behave in the wild, they're primarily grass seed eating birds that spend most of their time foraging on the ground. So they enjoy that.
And I think too, in this new kind of virtual world that we're living in, a lot of families are doing homeschooling too, and using this kind of research as a homeschool project is a really neat thing for parents to do. If you're looking for ways to get your kids involved, they can do, okay, you say you want a budgie or you want a Senegal. Well, where do they come from? And then, oh, well, they come from Africa, or I have a bird. I want a bird that comes from. I want a cockatoo. It comes from Australia. Okay, so tell me about Australia. What's it like there? It's a springboard for a lot of things. Plus, they're learning about whether that bird's going to work in their home or not. And I think from that research, people then can create their own plan. And I think that kind of brings up the point, another point we talked about there's no perfect way to do anything. If there was, it's, yeah,
Yeah, I
it's,
mean, if there was a perfect way to do any aspect of animal care, we would all be doing it that way. There wouldn't be options because we would all do it that way because it's perfect. But at the end of the day, it's not. You have to make decisions for your individual animal, factoring in uh, aspects of the species, aspects of that individual animal. So, for example, I have an umbrella cockatoo, typically seen as a very large, very destructive bird. So you would think, oh, that bird can't have very fine, delicate toys, but he has a scissor beak, so he can't exert the same pressure. He needs to go to get a beak trim about every 6 weeks. I can give him toys that are made for conures, and he loves them. They're not a safety issue for him because he can't break them up the way you would expect an umbrella cockatoo to be able to do so. And it works really well for him. And, thank goodness he can't read the label that says that's a conure toy, because if he did, I don't know what he'd be able to do with himself.
there might be all kinds of issues. I remember when we first started making toys, I used to label them as this is a toy for a such and such, an African gray, and I don't do that anymore because we had one customer that had a black palm cockatoo, and she used to buy one of the smallest toys we make. Granted, she bought them 48 at a time, but her black palm had a beak issue, and she needed, something smaller that it could manage. And which brings up another point that it's all about your setting. It's all about what works in your setting. And before people get kind of judgy about things, they really need to think about, okay, maybe this person has issues with screaming because they live in a tiny apartment and their neighbors, they're going to get kicked out of their apartment. So I would always advocate for letting birds, vocalize and encouraging that at certain times of the day. But if you live in an apartment, that's not going to work. It doesn't mean you can't have that kind of bird. It just means you need to figure out a different way to manage it.
Yeah, my female eclectus that I had, she would always do this piercing whistle, even when we lived in an apartment. And I actually lucked out because one time I would start just bringing her to and from work with me. That cut back the times that she was vocalizing at the house because she was just excited to get out of the house. So she got to go on a field trip every single day. Uh, and one day when I'm coming home, she actually does the piercing whistle in the middle of our hallway. And my next door neighbor was just coming out of their apartment at the time, and they're like, "Oh my God, I've just wanted to know what's been making that sound. Like I didn't know if the fire alarm was going out or what. So it's good to put a face to a sound." So I actually got lucky in that situation. But yeah, I definitely agree. We love parrots, but they are loud. That's one of the things that they
Mhm.
do. So you sometimes have to just look at different ways to manage that.
Right. And I think too, the same with dietary issues. So, you know, anybody that's on Facebook knows that this is a super hot topic, and there are schools of thought that feel it's all this way or all that way. And it really creates some guilt. It creates anger. And I think we all kind of need to be respectful and look at it from different perspectives. I mean, you mentioned you've got to take a look at things from all different sides when you're creating this life, if you will, for the animals in your care. And,
Right. And
it's
so,
one, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say, so that notion of like diet and providing things in a different way, like just so everyone knows, that's something that even zoo professionals, you'll find conflict there. Because there's some people that'll say, animals have access to the entire world. And when we put them in an enclosure, we take away all of their variety. So we need to give them as much variety in their diet as possible. But then you'll also get people that'll say, well, they have access to the whole world, but realistically, at this time of year, two fruit trees are producing, and if you look at them in the wild, they're going to be eating two types of fruit, and that's it. Some birds will sit in a single tree and eat one type of fruit until it is all gone. So for weeks, they're only getting one type of produce. So it's like, how do you know what you're supposed to be doing? Are you supposed to provide all of the variety? Are you supposed to provide, one thing at a time and rotate through? Um,
And
and
and I think it's
ultimately come
about
down to your.
I really think it's about everything in moderation. So it's there should be some variety. And maybe you offer that variety through enrichment. Maybe you offer that through the way it's presented. Or, and you offer a pelleted diet as well in case, you guys deal with hurricanes down in Texas. We deal with blizzards up here. If I can't get out and get the fresh produce, I want my bird to know that pellets are a food option, that they are a food source. Maybe not the one that I want them having exclusively, but it's about introducing them to things so that there's an awareness, but everything in moderation. Doing things. It's the all or nothing mentality that happens a lot on Facebook, and in any community. I think not just the avian community or the zookeeping community. It happens, and we just need to be sensitive to maybe this person can't possibly provide that perfect quote unquote diet. So it's about being sensitive, and it's okay to have different approaches. um, and
Well,
we
and
also,
even,
Jack.
oh, sorry. Uh,
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, even with providing that variety of diets, like even providing a variety, you're still going to get criticism and people questioning whether or not that's the right thing to do. So, like, I've actually done things where I've showcased how I prep produce for my animals. And so, prepping produce for my parrots, I've gotten comments that I'm using way too much fruit, and that's going to cause my birds to become hormonal and aggressive. And I'm prepping produce mixes for breeding pairs of birds. So, like, I want to encourage that breeding behavior. But if that's a single bird that you have living in your living room, you may want to avoid that. So
Mhm.
again, even that notion of variety, it's like I can provide that variety with a little more fruit. If you have a parrot sitting in your living room, you may want to provide that with mixed greens and low sugar vegetables. It's still a variety, and no one way, I would say, is going to be right as long as you're paying attention to what you want to do with that animal, what you're trying to accomplish.
And I think the same goes for enrichment. I like to talk about goal-based enrichment. What are you trying to accomplish with this? What behaviors are you looking to elicit? So I've got people that say, well, you have to have X number of toys in the cage, and you need to have, two shreddables and one chewable and one, foraging, whatever. And that's all well and good if you've got a reason for it. Okay. If you've got, okay, I have this because I want to elicit this shredding behavior. I want my bird to shred. I've got this because I want it to be destroyed and I want to condition the beak. I've got, four different kinds of perches. Well, wait, what do you mean you've got four different kinds of perches? There's only one kind of perch that's right. Well, not if I want to accomplish different things. Maybe one of them is where I want them to have their feet wide open. So it's a little bit bigger than you might anticipate for that size bird. Maybe I want them to work on some exercise. So it's a variety of sizes on one perch. It goes from small to large. Maybe it's not affixed super tightly to the side of the cage. There's some give to it because I want that exercise piece to happen. So it's we've talked about that too. That what are you trying to elicit? So when you guys create enrichment where you work, Jack, or even with your birds too, do you have goals for what you're giving them that before you just kind of toss that enrichment in?
Oh, you should always have goals for any of those items. And honestly, I utilize a lot of foraging and puzzle feeder items. Those are probably going to be my two favorite types of enrichment. One of the main things that I will get out of that is it keeps that animal busy, so they're not bothering me for at least a little bit. And I mean, and that's part of what I need. So like that's going to be applicable to so many different animals. If I go in to clean the camel yard, I can give them a puzzle feeder with grain in one corner of the yard, and they'll stay out of the way and leave me alone because otherwise, a 1,200-pound camel trying to help you drive a tractor is not something that you really want to try to deal with.
Mhm. We used to do the same
I mean, we
thing
also
with,
don't really
I
let
worked
people
with,
drive unless they have a license. So
oh, come on. Do you let the camels drive the tractor?
no,
No.
but he thinks he should.
There you go. Well, I used to work with a turkey vulture, and the turkey vulture would attack your calves when you'd go in to clean out the enclosure. And people were like, "Oh no, no, I'm not cleaning in there. I don't want to. I get attacked when I go in there." And it was just that particular turkey vulture. And so what we did was we used enrichment to our benefit. We took a paper bag, stuffed it full of leaves, and paper and stuff like that, and put a tiny tidbit in the bottom, a food tidbit in the bottom of the bag, and you'd put the paper bag in, and the vulture would start going through the bag, and then you could clean unhindered, or unassaulted. Depends on how the day was
Yes.
going. Um, so I think bottom line it, Jack, there are so many different ways for people to do things, and I can tell you from traveling to different facilities and working with big groups of parrot owners, everybody's got something to offer, and it may not be the most polished professional opinion. It may not be the way you or I would do it, but if it works in that person's setting, then I think it's worth a shot.
Well, and I would say there is a lot to, base off of those people who don't necessarily have the most polished or professional viewpoints, because a lot of those opinions are going to be based on, well, I was watching my bird and it did this, or I was watching and this happened, and that is where you find out what to do with your bird. One of the biggest things that I can encourage people whenever they get any new animal, make their enclosure something you like looking at. Because if you like looking at it, you're going to be more likely to observe that animal. You're going to see how they're interacting with things. You're going to learn how to pick up on those problems. Every animal is going to be different, even if you have the same species. I've got 4 different umbrella cockatoos here that are all completely different in terms of personality. So you can't give one the same thing as the other and expect the exact same response.
Yeah, I think it's a study of one. I mean, I have people say, "Oh, we get phone calls. Oh, I've got one of these, and what should I do with it? I've got this kind of bird, and what should I give it?" I have no idea. I can make suggestions, but I really think it's about people need to trust themselves, trust their intuition, and unless it's something that is pretty obviously detrimental to that animal's welfare, then it's worth a shot. And if it's something you're trying for the first time, maybe offer it while they're being supervised. So do you guys have any rules at your facility about if it's something new that you're giving them? Is there any like observation, or how does that work?
Yeah, so if it's anything that's brand new, they are going to get direct supervision. And that's, I mean, obviously, we're going to try to make sure that any item is going to be as safe as possible. But, you sort of get into that balancing act of, well, if I give the animal just everything that is 100% safe, that means that I'm not giving the animal anything. So if it's something brand new, something they've never interacted with before, they get direct supervision. If it is something they've gotten something similar before, they can get intermittent supervision. So, like certain hanging toys for some of the birds, they get here, I'll watch you for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to go through and clean out this enclosure, and I can keep an eye on you while I'm doing that.
Um,
Mhm.
so, and I mean, I would say I would never completely trust any individual enrichment item with any individual animal. There's always a chance that something could go wrong, even if it is something that your animal has gotten hundreds of times. So, I mean, it's always up to you as the caretaker to make sure that you're supervising and making sure that you're providing for what's in the best interest of that animal.
Mhm. I always tell people to play worst case scenario in their heads before they give something, because there's that fluke thing that's going to happen, and your bird's going to end up hurt. And it's something that you kind of went, oh, I never thought of that, or suddenly your bird is an escape artist and you had no idea. Um, and it's really for safety. It's about being aware, and you mentioned observation before, and I think people just need to kind of be aware of what they're offering, look at all the possibilities, and if something makes you uncomfortable when it comes to taking care of your bird, your flock, don't do it. If there's something that you're like, I don't think I want to do that, don't. It's just not worth it. So I think, Jack, we could go on and on and on. There are so many different topics that are controversial out there. And if people want to, maybe send you or send me topics that are that they'd like to hear about, that are controversial, we could be brave enough to handle them. Is there anything you wanted to let people know that you know we didn't cover?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I always pretty much bring it down to 2 points, and we kind of hit on them, but I mean, just so they're plain as day. It is okay to do things differently as long as you are one, making sure you are looking out for anything that's an obvious health or safety issue. Obviously, you want to avoid that. I'm not going to give my cockatoo an aim and flame lighter. That's an issue. Um, you right. But you also want to make sure that you're doing things with the consideration of that animal. So, so an example of that, talking about the variety of different types of perches, I make it abundantly clear that one of my least favorite types of perches, and they do all have pros and cons. So I'm not saying it's a bad perch. I just personally don't like the rope perches because when you get to a collection of a certain size, trying to keep them clean is a little bit difficult for what you're getting out of it. That being said, I have geriatric Amazons that do really well on those perches because they're starting to get arthritis. So, trying to provide for what is in the best interest of your animal, as long as you're doing that, other people may have opinions and say, oh, well, you know, you could offer this or you could offer this. And usually you're going to have a laundry list of reasons why. No, we've tried that and that didn't work. Um, I would say be open to suggestions, but the people who come at you dictating, you have to do this with your bird. No, I don't. I'm a grown up. Um, I I can figure out how to take care of my bird. You don't live here. You don't know enough about this animal to tell me exactly what it is I need to do with it.
Mhm. I think you're absolutely right. And I think people need to kind of agree to disagree. That, Jack and I have had, so we had a little bit of a philosophical disagreement about training. It was, I said, no birds on bikes. And Jack said, well, why not? And Jack brought up the point, and it was really difficult for me to listen, because I feel very strongly about that. And I think most of us who have animals in our care, whether it be professionally or on a pet ownership level, we're very passionate about what we do, and we're passionate about our animals. And so I'm very passionate about no birds on bicycles, and because it's not a natural behavior. And Jack kind of pointed out to me, not kind of, he did pointed out to me that when you're training that bird on the bicycle or on the roller skates or whatever, you're building that relationship. you're building your relationship through training. And it's a really good point. And I could have gone in and said, nope, absolutely not, Jack. That's not the way it goes because I don't believe in that. So what does that tell me? I mean, I have learned so much from people in the trainings that I do, and I go into things, and I'm not going to say to you everything I suggest is right because it might not work in your setting. It might not work with your bird. Um, but I think both Jack and I feel that you've got to be open. You've got to kind of say, okay, I'll listen. I'll listen, and I may still disagree, but I'll listen respectfully. And then if it doesn't work for my situation, it doesn't work for my situation. So,
Right. And I mean, the closest I'll get to revealing either of our ages. So between the two of us, we've got 40 years of animal care experience. And we can both still have instances where someone asks us a question, and my first response is, I don't know. Like I know who, like, if you want to ask me about a particular species, it's like I don't have as much experience with that individual species, but I know someone I can go and ask. Or you may be trying to get a particular behavior, and it's like, well, I can come up with an idea of how we're going to make that happen, but let's see if it'll work.
yeah,
It's,
yeah, and
even this far in, there's still stuff you don't know.
right. And I think, like we started out the whole conversation, it's always evolving. It's always changing. And so if you stick to your guns and you never change anything, it's you're going to get stuck. And I had a picture that I shared on Facebook the other day from International Association of Avian Trainers and Educators, and it said the most dangerous words are, we've always done it that way. And I think you just need to listen. Listening is a skill that a lot of us have forgotten. And I think it's just important when we're talking about animal care. So, closing remarks, Jack?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've sort of hit at that, the whole notion of don't stick to something just because that's how you've always done it. Keep an open mind, but at the end of the day, remember, you're the one that's taking care of that animal. So, like Robin, in your situation, um, you don't have to train your bird to ride a bicycle. Uh, but that doesn't mean that it can't also be a way that I'm building a relationship and interacting with my animal. And we can both recognize the different sides of that. I recognize that it is not remotely a natural behavior. I mean, I don't even know where you find bicycles that little in the wild. Um,
The
but
wild
if
bike
anyone
story.
could find that, parents could. But yeah, so it's that, like, give and take, and recognizing that just because you don't want to do something a certain way doesn't mean that that way is wrong.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed chatting, and I hope that if people have questions, they can reach out to either one of us. And maybe we can do this again sometime.
I would love that. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, stay cool there in Texas, and I'll stay nice and, sunny here in New Hampshire. So it's been great talking to you. Thanks, Jack, and keep up the good work with High Redbird.
All right. Thanks, Robin.
All right, guys. Now, Robin and I absolutely loved doing this session for you guys. And after talking about it, we've decided we'd really love to put together more discussion type content for you guys if anyone is interested in it. The benefit for us is that it's like talking to a person, and that level of face-to-face social interaction that a lot of us are really, really missing. So both of us really enjoyed doing this session. So if there are any other topics that you would like us to cover, we understand that there are a lot of controversial topics that a lot of people don't even really want to touch because of the hatred that can be thrown at them. The good news is that me and Robin are both content and solid enough in our background of animal care that we're not really worried about what people will say about us. We don't have a problem hitting any of those difficult topics. So if you guys have a particular comment or a particular topic that you would like to see covered, go ahead, leave a comment down in the comment section of this video, because we'd love to put out more content for you guys. I do want to thank you guys so much, as always, for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys next time. All right, thanks. I do need to say thank you to my Patreon patrons for helping to make these videos possible. You can find out more by visiting Hi Red Bird on Patreon or clicking the link in the description section down below if you would like more information. Thanks!